Good morning, dear learners. Welcome to teaching learning session of Sociology. Today we'll discuss BSOC 131 status and roles. What is status? What is role? Status and role both are important. They play an important role in society, right? What is social status? Social status refers to the position that one holds in the society or a group. And this position that one holds plays a very important role. This status implies the position or the rank one holds in the social group or the position that one holds in a given system. Prestige, status, right? What is status? In simpler terms, it is nothing but the position one holds in a system or in a group or in a society is a status, right? Every status holder has to perform certain roles. Certain roles are associated with every status. Status comes with responsibilities with the roles to play, right? And every member has a status role position, and that person who is holding that status has to play that role, and that is known as the role position. Every member has a certain role position. When he holds a certain position, he has to play certain roles to accomplish the task, and this is status role position. All status roles do not command similar position authority or the social recognition or the authority. Status role of a father as the head of the family and patriarchal family like that of ours differ from the status role in the matrilineal society. So in every society the status varies. That in every society it is not compulsory that that status role holds the similar types of the positions or the authorities. It varies from system to system. Like in patrilineal society, the position of father is like the head of the family, but in matrilineal society the head of the family is mother. So there is a difference in the status according to the system or the society. Elements and character, there are certain elements and characteristics of a social status, right? The social status is determined by the cultural situation of a particular society. So it totally depends on the culture of the society. This culture of the society determines the status of a particular position. The status is determined only in relevance of the other members of the society. It depends on the status of any the status depends on the culture of any society, as well as the status is determined in relevance of the other members of the society, and every individual has to play a certain role in accordance with this status. Status is only a part of a society and not the whole. So the elements of the society, the first element, it depends on the character. It depends on the cultural situations of the society. The second element, it is we compare it with other members or other status of the society. It is an element of the society, not the whole society, and role is associated with each and every status, right? The result of a status, the society is divided into various groups. Every status carries with it some prestige. Prestige is associated with status. According to the status, people may be divided into various categories. Right? These categories or status are not imposed from the above. Some of these status are earned or achieved, while others are ascribed. So we divide this status into the categories. These could be the achieved or earned status or the ascribed status. So there are the two types of this status. The first is ascribed status and second is earned or achieved status. What is ascribed status? Ascribed status is which is given to an individual on the basis of the situation in the society or by their members of the society, is called the ascribed status. right? Such status may be given by the birth or by the placement in a social group. Like ascribed status is that status which we inherit, either we inherit from our family, or which has been given to us by the group, by the society, or by the situation, or by the group. Such status are called the ascribed status. Ascribed status could be by birth or by the placement of the society's caste. Caste is an ascribed status. No one has earned it. It depends on the birth. In which caste you have born, that is the ascribed status, right? Caste is the best example of ascribed status in Indian society. Achieved status. Achieved status is that status or a position that a person has earned out of his personal efforts, and is called achieved status or earned status. When you earn some status because of your efforts, because of your capabilities, then that status is known as achieved status or the earned status. Suppose if you are a doctor, you become a doctor because of your efforts, then that status, the status of a doctor, you have earned this status. The status of a teacher, you have earned this status. The status is given by the ability, capacity, and efforts of the individual. This status is not inherited. It depends on the abilities of the individuals. It depends on the capacity of the individual and the efforts which one puts in. Right? That status is known as achieved or earned status. One most interesting thing is that a person can hold several status at a time, such as being a daughter. She could be a social worker. She could be a member of a book reading club. She could be a guitarist and a manager in a company. A combination of all status that a person hold is called the status set. So you can hold more than one status. You could be a daughter, you could be a son, you could be a guitarist or a musician, you could be a manager of a company, you could be a social worker, right? So you one person can holds more than one status at a time, and when one individual holds more than one status at a time, this is called status set. So what is status set? Status set is when one holds more than one status at a time. That is known as status set. Sociologist Max Weber defines status as positive or negative social estimation of honor. Master status. Master status. What is master status? In every society, there is a one status that tends to overshadow all other status, or is given more importance than the other. This is called a master status. You could be daughter of someone, you could be wife of someone, you could be mother of someone, but at the same time you are a doctor. Then this status of a doctor overshadows every other status, and this status of doctor has been given more importance in the society rather than any other society, than the other status. Then this status of a doctor is known as a master status. So being an individual, you can hold more than one status, but out of all those status, one status could be more important than any other status, and that important status overshadows other status. Then that status which is more important than any other status is called the master status, right? Gender, race, caste, for instance, often become the master status in highly stratified society. So gender, male or female, whether you are a male or a female, it could be a master status. A race or caste could be a master status. It could be the master status in stratified, highly stratified society. Or as I have given you the example, you could be a doctor. You may be a doctor, son, or a brother, or a husband of someone, or a father of someone. But that status of that doctor overpowers every other status which you hold. That status is known as master status because one status has been given more importance in this society than the other status which you hold. What is role? The concept of role. Just there are multiple status, there are roles associated with each of them. You have to play a role of a father, a role of a son, a role of a husband, and a role of a doctor. So every status, every state holds some roles. Every role is associated. Roles are associated with every status, right? Giddens and Sutton define the role as socially defined expectations that a person in a given status follows. What is a role according to the Giddens and Suttons? Role is nothing but the expectation, socially defined expectation from a person which holds a given status or a certain status. Turner defines role as a cluster of behavior and attitude and argues that role helps in organizing social behavior both at individual and collective level. Benton's definition, a role are cluster of rights and obligations. And what is one individual's obligation is his or her partner's right. Newcomb distinguished between expected behavior and actual behavior of an individual. So, according to Newcombs, there could be two behavior: the actual behavior and the expected behavior. What is the expected behavior? Expected behavior is the one which an individual is expected to perform as per the status and the role assigned to him or her. But what is the actual behavior? Actual behavior of a person may differ from the expected behavior. You expect how you expect that a person will behave in a certain way which holds that position. When that person behaves in a different way, when you what is your expectation is expected behavior of that role. When that person behaves in a different way than what is expected from him or her, then that behavior is known as actual behavior. Role learning. What is role learning? When you opt for any role, that you start learning that role, and this role learning starts at the young age. When children start observing how people in their surroundings behave with them and towards each other, this is how the how the children become socialized, how they start learning about their roles through observations, through the observation how the people behave with them and with each other. Children often engage in role playing games where they enact the role of a mother, father, associated with status. This helps in the smooth running of the society. And according to functionalist, this is your consensus on as an individual. Social interactionist, Mead and Turner are social interactionists. Social interactionists argue that individual, though bound by the structure and its given expectations, interpret and evaluate their roles and engage in negotiation. For interactionists, this is a creative process of role making rather than just unquestioning and internalization of a given expectations. So, as per interactionist, that individual, though are bound by this structure and is given bound by this structure, they have to follow the norms and the expectations associated with this status, but they interpret and evaluate those norms and expectations, and then they engage in negotiation. And according to interactionist, this is a creative process of role making rather than just unquestioning and internalization of those expectations. According to structuralist, the one should internalize the expectations as such for the smooth running of the society. But according to interactionist, every status is associated with certain, every role is associated with certain expectations and the norms. But a creative, but what an individual do is individual interprets and evaluates the role rather than unquestioning and internalization of the process as such. They go into a creative mode, and that is known as the role making. They evaluate the roles, they interpret the roles, and they engage in negotiation and then start performing the roles, right? So classifications of the roles, there are certain classifications of the roles, and we classify roles into ascribed roles and achieved roles, relational, non-relational roles, basic, general, independent roles. Ascribed roles and achieved roles, like ascribed status, the ascribed roles are the ones that are given at the birth. From the time of individual is born, the role learning begins, which is a part of what we know as socialization. These role pertains to one's gender, age, kinship, caste, class, and so on. So, role learning starts from the beginning, from the birth, right? The achieved roles, what are the achieved roles? Achieved roles are the ones that are largely acquired over the lifetime on the basis of merits or the occupational roles, such as of a salesperson, you're a banker or a lawyer or a professor or a doctor. That are the ascribed roles. Relational and non-relational roles, there are certain roles which are complementary in each other and conceived of or defined in relation to one another. Those are known as a relational role, like a role of a debtor and a creditor. If there is a creditor, then only then there could be a debtor. If there is a debtor, then only there could be a creditor. Non-relational roles, on the other hand, are not dependent or complementary. Such roles are like of the musician or a researcher or a painter. They are not dependent on each other, right? Like age and the sex roles falls in non-relational category, while kinship roles falls under the relational category. Basic, general, and independent rule. What are the basic rules? Basic rules are mostly determined by the sex or the age ascribed to individual at the birth, and these roles shape in a large number of social contexts, like if some there are division of labor according to the age, according to the gender. What is the general rules are mostly assigned on the basis of merits of an individual, while independent roles are determined by the merits and have very less implication for other roles and on the way people respond to the person who occupies the independent roles. Independent roles could be your occupational roles, right? What is role changing? A role never remains the same and keeps evolving. Individual moves from one role to another, and new roles are added to the old set of a role. When a person moves from one role to another, it is important to become familiar about the rights and the obligations of a new role. You could be a son, you might be a son, a student. Now you are an employee of certain organization. This is role changing. Your role has been changed. Now you are an employee. You have to play a role of an employee, and it is very important to understand the rights and obligations of a new employee being an of a new role, being an employee of an organization. It is important not only for the person who undergoes a role change, but also for all others who are associated with the person or modify their behavior and expectations as per the new roles. So it is very important for for a person who undertakes a new role as well as for those who are associated with that person. There is another term, role conflict and role strain. What is role conflict? A person occupies several status and there are multiple roles to be played because every status is associated with a certain roles. Sometimes two different status of an individual may demand conflicting expectations, placing the individual in the state of dilemma. Suppose one person is a judge as well as a father of a son, and a case regarding his son has been presented to him in his court. Now this is a role conflict, whether he should play a role of a father or a role of a judge. So, what is role conflict? When one has to play more than one role at the same time, and there is a conflict in demand and the expectations, and that places an individual into dilemma. That is known as a role conflict. Is experienced when different responsibilities associated with single status are incompatible, right? Suppose a student has to prepare for the exam which is scheduled on the next day, as well as he has to prepare for a certain debate where he has to represent his school. Now he is in dilemma whether he should prepare for the exam or for a debate, right? So this is a role strain when an individual experience different responsibilities associated with a single status, right? I hope status and roles are clear. Now we'll discuss about group and community. What is group? What is community? Community. Definitions of community. According to Bogadas, community is a social group with some degree of we feeling and living in a given area. So, what is community? Community is a social group. Social group which has a feeling of we, and they live in a given geographical area. So, according to Bagadas, to be a community, it is very important that that members of that group should have we feeling and should live in a common geographical area. For Kingsley Davis, community is a smallest territorial group that can embrace all aspects of social life, that share all aspects of social life, and they share a common geographical area. They live in a common geographical area. Ginsburg defines community as a group of social beings living in a living a common life, including all the infinite variety and complexity of relationship which results from that common life which constitutes it. There are certain characteristics of a community. All communities need not to be self-sufficient. Some communities are all inclusive and independent of others. The first characteristic of a community is there must be a definite territory, means they must share a common geographical area. There should be a well defined territory. If there is a well defined territory, then that group is known as community. Population. Next characteristic is population, that community should have a certain number of people in a group, that they should have certain population. Next is there should be a close relationship between the members of that group. They should share common relationship, close relationship with each other. There should be a cultural similarity among the group members. Then only it could be a community. There should be a we feeling among the members to be a community, and organized interaction. There must be an organized interaction. They should interact with each other, but it should be an organized interaction. So these are the characteristics of a community. If any group has this characteristic, then that is known as community. If they have a well-defined territory, they have a population, a close social relationship, cultural similarity, we feeling, and then organized interaction. A basis of community, locality. First is locality. Community always occupies a geographical area. Locality is the physical basis of community, means should have a well-defined territory. Next is community sentiment, means they should have a we feeling, right? Locality is an important condition, but is not enough to create a community. A community sentiment means they should have a feeling of belongingness. They should have a feeling of belonging together. The members should develop a feeling of we. There should be a we feeling among the members of that group, right? Next is we feeling. This is feeling that leads a man to identify themselves with each other. This is the feeling which leads the member to recognize or to be identify themselves with each other. A role feeling. Each person feel he or she has a role to play, his own function to fulfill in reciprocal exchange of the social scene. So there should be a role filling. Everyone should have a role to play in in that group, right? Then it creates a community. Dependency feeling. Dependency feeling means that the individual sense of dependence upon the community as a necessary condition of his own life. That we are dependent on each other. This feeling should be there. It means how these feelings come when there is a division of labor. We need when there is a division of labor, and when there is a uh, uh, when we depend on each other for our needs, for our necessities, then this dependency feelings come, and this is required to form a community. Community has been defined in the following way, like a grouping of a people within a geographical area, with a division of labor into specialized and independent, interdependent function. Then only we have this feeling, dependency feeling, with common culture and a social system which organizes their activities, whose members are conscious of their unity and belonging to the community. When we have we feeling, whose members act collectively in an organized manner, then we can say that community, that group is a community. Now, community and association. What is a community? A group of people who share all those characteristics which we discussed earlier, then it forms a community, right? One of the most important division of social group is association. What is association? Association is also a group of a people united for a specific purpose or a limited number of purposes, right? Then that is known as association. What is association? Association is a group of people. They unite together for a purpose, for a specific purpose or a limited number of purposes. When we collect together, when we unite together for a specific purpose, then that is known as community. Army is a community, a school is a community. The object is to defend the nation or to impart the knowledge. When we come together for a specific purpose, then that is known as association. Like school is an association. There is a purpose. The purpose is to impart the knowledge. Army is an association. The purpose is to defend the nation. While community is permanent, social group embracing a totality of ends or purpose, while association, the life of members of community is wholly lived in it. Social. Now, what is a group? Community is a social group, association is a social group, but what is this social group? Definitions of the social group. Albion small. defines a group, any number of a people, larger or smaller, between whom such relations are discovered they must be they must be thought of together. Then that is known as group. Group is any number of people. It could be a larger number of people or a smaller number of people, but there must be a relationship between them. Then that is known as group. A Bogardas defines social group may a social group may be thought of as a number of persons, two or more, who have some common objects of attention, who are stimulating to each other, who have common loyalty and participate in similar activities. So, according to Bogardes, what is a group? A group when two or more people come together and they have a common objectives to achieve. They interact with each other, they have common loyalties, and they participate in similar activities. Then that is known as social group. While Green Arnold defines a group is an aggregate of an individual which persists in time, which has one or more interests and activities in common, and which is organized. So, what is a group? In short, group is a collection of two or more individuals which have certain common goals, certain common loyalties, and have certain common interests and activities. When they come together, they form a group. Williams defines a social group is a given aggregate of a people playing interrelated roles and recognized by themselves or other as a unit of interaction. Cooley defines the groups in Cooley divides C.H. Cooley. Yes, C.H. Cooley played a very important role, and he divided the groups into two: the primary group and the secondary group. And he has divided on the basis of its contact. On the basis of the contact of the members of the group, Cooley has divided the group into two: the primary group and the secondary group. Giddings classify group into genetic or congregate on the basis of relationship. So first define what is the primary group and what is the secondary group. On the basis of the relation, Cooley has divided it into primary group and secondary group. What is primary group? The primary group was this term was coined by Charles Cooley, and he has coined this term in his book Social Organization. According to Cole, primary group is smaller in size, and the member of this group have face-to-face contacts. They have intimate relationship. They cooperate with each other, and they have a strong loyalties. Then they and the primary group comes to an end when one or more member leave it and cannot be substituted by the other. Example of primary group could be your family. How? So primary group, there are certain characteristics of a primary group is that group, it is relatively smaller in size. Now the members of this group have face to face interaction. They have common interest, and they have intimate relationships. They cooperate each other, and they have strong loyalty. And if one or more members leave this group, they cannot be substituted by others, right? Mother cannot be substituted by any other, or brother cannot be substituted by any other. So these groups are known as primary group, right? Secondary group, the other type of a group which Cooley defined is secondary group. Secondary group is opposite to primary group. They are, as they are large in number. Primary group is smaller in number. Secondary group maintain relative limited formal and impersonal relationship with each other. See, secondary group is larger in number. They maintain a relatively impersonal and a formal relationship with each other. Secondary group are specific or specialized interest group. And there is basically a division of labor in secondary group. Secondary group may, if one, two, or more member leaves the secondary group, the group may continue, right? The member can be substituted by the another member. Example is any organization. If one or more employee leave that organization, that employee can be substituted by the another employee. Example could be your football club. Example could be your factory, right? So, primary group and secondary group. C.H. Fuller defined the term primary group and secondary group, and in his book Social Organization. So, I hope this is clear what is primary group and what is social uh, secondary group. While Giddings classifies the group into genetic or congregate on the basis of type of relationship, then Sumner distinguished the group into in-group and the out-group, and he defined this in-group and out-group on the basis of consciousness of kind. Hesson classified group on the basis of their relations to other group into unsocial, pseudo-social, and pro-social group. And Miller divides the group into horizontal and vertical groups. Right. So I hope you can differentiate between the primary and the secondary group. Primary group is smaller in size, while secondary group is bigger in size. There exists a personal and intimate relationship in the primary group, while the secondary group there are the formal relationship and relatively impersonal. The face-to-face communication is required in the primary group, while in secondary group, members may have little face-to-face interaction. Okay, in primary group, members may have a strong loyalty and a we feeling, and the secondary group there might be a less we feeling, or anonymity prevails. Informality is most common in a primary group, while primary group the relations are inclusive. That is why the absence of one person cannot be fulfilled by the other. It is all inclusive. Inclusiveness of relation is not found in secondary group. Therefore, a person can be easily substituted by the other. So, in primary group, if one or more than one member leaves that group, they cannot be substituted. That's why we call the primary group is all inclusive. But in secondary group is not all inclusive, it is exclusive. That is, if some member left that group, then those member can be substituted by the other members. Virtue like love, sympathy, mutual help flourish in the primary group, while in secondary group promotes the self-interest and individuality. Group decisions are mere traditional and non-rational in primary group, while in secondary groups decisions are more rational and emphasis is on the efficiency. Right? Next is Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. These terms are developed by F. Tonis in 1887, Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. The Gemeinschaft is a social system in which most relationships are personal or traditional and often both. These are the German terms and was developed by F. Tonis. What is the Gemeinschaft? It is a social system in which most relationships are personal or traditional, an example of this could be a feudal manor, a small community held together by a combination of a personal relationship and the status obligation. Although there is a great inequality exists in the Gemeinschaft. Gemeinschaft could be compared with the primary group. Gemeinschaft, where the most relationships are the primary and the traditional, like in primary group, right? In Gesellschaft, the society of tradition is replaced with the society of contract. It depends. The Gesellschaft is like a secondary group where people come together to achieve certain objective. That is a society of contract. This society is neither personally attached nor traditional rights and duties are important in Gesellschaft society. The relationship between people are determined by bargaining and defined in a written agreement. The Gemeinschaft is the primary group relationship were dominant, while in Gesellschaft, secondary group relationship gained in importance. So Gemeinschaft is like a primary group which is of traditional type of a society, and people share a personal type of a relationship. While in Gesellschaft, it is the traditional society is replaced, the society of traditional is replaced with the society of a contract. In Gesellschaft society, people come together to achieve certain common objectives, right? In group and out group. W. Sumner divided the groups into in group and out group. The twin term introduced by this Sumner, it refers to the we relationship in contrast to the outsiders to the relationship. The in group, the Sumner defined the in group in his book Folkville. There are the some groups to which I belong, my family, my religion, my university, my profession, my nation, any group which proceed with the pronoun my. These are in group because I feeling I belong to them. Then there are other group to which I don't belong. That is known as the out group, right? So what is in group? In group is where there is a feeling of I. Then that group is known as in group. When there is not a feeling of I or we, then that group is known as out group. My university, my college, my office, then that is known as my colleagues. Then this is in group. Their college, their university, then that is known as out group. Where there is a feeling of I, then that is or my, then that is known as in group. Where there is no feeling of I or my, then that group is known as out group. Next group is reference group. Reference group may not be the actual group. It may even be imaginary one. Any group is a reference group for someone if his conception of it, which may or may not be realistic, is a part of his frame of reference. When you refer someone, when you refer some group and like to be like that group, then that group is known as reference group. Reference group could be a real group or could be a actual group or could be unrealistic or imaginary group. When you want to be like someone, my group should be like that group, then that group is a reference group for my group. When I take the reference for someone, when I want my group should be like that group, then that group is known as a reference group. That reference group is accepted as a model or a guide for our judgments and actions. That reference group act as a model for us. We want to be like that group, then that group is known as reference group because that act as a model for our judgments and actions. Now, another type of a group is vertical and horizontal groups. What are vertical and horizontal group? This concept is given by the Miller, right? Vertical group consists of members from all walks of the life, while horizontal group consists mainly member from the one social class. Then that is known as horizontal social class. Like a group of doctors, it is a horizontal group because they are members of from one social class, right? Group of professor, that is a horizontal group. Vertical group is where people from the all walks of life comes, then that is known as vertical group. Like caste could be a vertical group from the all classes. Our doctor A doctor could have a same caste as of electrician have. So this is vertical group. Vertical group where members of the each class come together, they form a vertical group, and horizontal group when there are the members from the same class. Doctor have a class. This group is known as horizontal group. While caste is a vertical group, okay, because an electrician could have a same caste as doctor have, as a professor have. So this is vertical group. Institutional, and next type of a group is institutional group and non-institutional group. Institutional group are those which functions through rituals, symbols, officers, code of conduct, regulatory power, including power to punish. The nation is an institutional group. The state, as an association of citizens for power, is an institutional group, in contrast to picnic party, which is non-institutional group. Institutional group is where there are certain rules, where there are certain obligations, where there are certain rituals, symbols, code of conduct, and everyone has to follow those rules. Then that is known as institutional group. Like your nation is an institutional group, your organization is an institutional group. Non-institutional group, where there are no rituals, symbols, or code of conduct, then that is non-institutional group. A picnic group could be a non-institutional group. Another group could be voluntary group and involuntary group. Voluntary group is one which person joins his own. It is his option whether he wants to be a part of that group or not. Then that group is known as voluntary group. Suppose a club member, club membership could be voluntary. If you want to be a member of a certain society, then it depends on you. That is voluntary group. While involuntary group is one which is based on the kinship or a caste and beyond the wish of an individual, then that group is known as involuntary group. If you are a member of a certain family, whether you like or not, you are a member of that family, that is involuntary group. If you belongs to a certain caste, whether you like or not, you are a member of that caste, you belong to that caste, then you are a member of that group, that is known as involuntary group. Then formal and informal group. An informal group is one in which number of people or members come together to attain a common goal. Right? There are no written rules, regulation, conduct to govern the relationship between these members. Right? That group is known as informal group, like social worker. If a group of people doing something good for this society, then that group is known as informal group. Formal group, while formal group consists of a number of persons working together to achieve a particular goal, then that group is known as a formal group. Example, a bureaucratic group, an group of an employee of a particular organization is a formal group because they are working together to achieve the particular goals. Then that is known as formal group. That's all for today. Thank you very much. Namaskar.